So, welcome all of you. So this takes about an hour and a half historically. For some odd reason, I think I've actually gone as long as like an hour and 45 minutes. I have no idea why it varies from presentation to presentation. I will do a restroom break at slightly past the halfway point, and so anybody who wants to police that can. First thing is congratulations. You guys are here. The fact that you're here means you made it through a season. You're about to head into your goal event. And as you've seen over the course of, unfortunately, this season for the spring team in training South Bay half and full marathon team, we had a fair amount of attrition, actually a disappointing amount of attrition. You know, people's lives get in their way. The fundraising becomes a problem. They get sick or injured and they're just unable to get to the start line and they're unable to complete. You guys are here because you did. And so you deserve a round of applause for yourselves for having done that. Give yourself a round of applause. So, why are you here actually listening to a busted down old coach? If you guys have seen me running while supporting trainings, you're probably thinking, this guy's a has-been who never was. You know, look at this guy, he's pathetic, he moves like some contorted robot. But there once was a day that I actually was pretty good in the sport. So I'm actually going to take a few moments and explain what I used to do in the sport. This videographer's creeping towards me. That's really, for the studio audience at home, I was not moving. Chris Walker, who's been kind enough to video this, hi, studio audience.
Yeah, this will take 3 hours.
Was moving towards me. That may take it towards the hour and 45-minute range, you know, curtail this kind of activity. So, some of you have heard stories about the various injuries that have reduced me to the runner that I am now, in addition to, you know, my advanced age. But this is a sport that it's a significant part of my own self-identity as a marathon runner. Ironically, in some ways, the very first marathon that I ran, which is now, 3 decades ago, on, appropriately enough, April Fool's Day, was a previous iteration of, yes, that's right, wait for it, the San Luis Obispo Marathon. Up until 2 years ago, there hadn't been a San Luis Obispo Marathon in at least a quarter of a century. So the folks in the room who were doing San Luis Obispo full, that's a reboot. It's something really pretty new. The one that I did was start in San Luis Obispo, run all the way down to Avila Beach, turn around and come back. The turnaround and come back was really kind of tough, by the way. The rolling hills that you San Luis Obispo people will encounter, that continues all the way down to the short line. So I ran that. I immediately fell out of love with running. I was a binge and purge distance runner for probably a good decade because I essentially quit running at that point. Came back like 4 or 5 years later, did another one, quit again. But around 95, so obviously you can do the math, a couple of decades ago, a switch really flipped in me and it became really something that I was devoted to. So over the course of the last 3 decades, I have started and completed 24 full marathons, and I've started and completed 52 half marathons. Even though I've slowed dramatically over the years, back even during the team and training era, I once did 6 half marathons in a row that were all in the 140s. I've done halves in the 130s, and my personal best was a 1:30:02. I missed breaking an hour and a half by 3 seconds and hyperventilated after I crossed the finish line. So that's clipping at like a 6:48 per mile pace or something like that. In full marathon, I've done 4 in the 3:30s. I've done 2 in the 3:20s. I've done 2 3:16s, and my PR was a 3:08:28, which works out to a 7-minute, 11-second per mile marathon pace. But one reason that I can really relate to everybody's experiences is my personal worst. I came close to having a personal worst half marathon about a little over a year ago that was close to my full marathon PR. It's interesting, the broad spectrum of times that I've been able to experience over the course of my lifetime. So probably 15, 18 times I've either had an age group medal or finished top 10 overall in distances from 5K to 10K, 2 half, 2 full. I've had a top 10 in a full marathon I've run 3 or 4, or I've qualified 3 or 4 times for the Boston Marathon. The garb I was wearing last night, a couple of things from the centennial, the 100th running of the Boston Marathon, where I was fortunate enough, as I try to spill another beverage, fortunate enough to finish in the top 25% of the field overall, which is really a pretty cool thing. And supposedly a long time ago, I finished a 5K at like a 5:38 pace overall, but I think the course was a little short. So I actually used to be good at this sport, I guess was the only point I was trying to make. And back then, I knew very little about what I was doing. So I pined a little bit for if I knew then what I know now, I might have been able to do some even better things. But my love of the sport remains, even as I found myself towards the back of the pack in various races. So I think, again, I've had the full spectrum of experiences. So in the talk, I will make mention of San Luis Obispo a few times because it is the goal event. The kinds of things that I'm going to talk about tonight, I think, are fairly universal. I'll talk about preparing for a full marathon generally. I think these are skills and knowledge that translate well to the half marathon as well, which is obviously something that I enjoy a great deal because I've now done more than twice as many halves as the fulls that I've done. So, first thing we're going to talk about is the race week. And so, for all you folks doing an April 27 event, your week hasn't started yet. So this is stuff you can start thinking about and planning to begin executing starting this weekend as you move towards your Sunday, April 27 event. And so we're going to break into categories the things that you should be thinking about and planning in the coming week as you're heading into your race. The first thing that you should think about is time goals. And probably half of the people who join team and training think of their time goal as a singular goal: finish. And I would never minimize or diminish the significance of that goal. You cross the finish line at a full marathon for the first time, you will join a segment of American society that is extremely elite. I researched it today in anticipation of this talk. According to Ask.com, 1/2% of Americans have completed a full marathon. 1/2%. So think of that. Go stand at the San Jose airport and count out 199 people who are going to pass you until that 200th is a fellow full marathoner, for those of you who complete that. And half marathon, I'm willing to bet, it's probably a 1% of American society, where, we obviously have recreational time and resources, and it's still a very rare and special accomplishment. So if you're thinking that's your singular goal for your race, great. Except, most races, there's this little thing called a time limit. And if there's a time limit, if you're going to achieve the initial goal of finish, you really want to get in before they shut down the whole thing. And trust me, I've been at races where they've literally taken down the clock. Literally take it off the banner, and they're hauling that off. I have one buddy of mine who 3 times finished DFL in a full marathon. In mixed company, that would be dead frigging last. A guy who they allowed to finish like over an hour after the posted maximum time. They even kept a hot food plate of breakfast food for him at one of the races, finishing an hour later than anybody else. Probably not the best thing to do, but probably better to instead adhere to the published time limits for your event, because perhaps the race director at your race will not be so charitable. So if you're headed to San Luis Obispo, the published time limit is 8 hours, okay? Well, what does that translate to? On the website, they call it 18 minute per mile. It's actually, if you do the math, 18 minute and 20 second per mile. But of course, that includes bang, gun going off at the beginning, you crossing the start line. One thing that's great about a race like San Luis Obispo is it's a small field. They won't allow more than 1,000 full marathoners in that race. So it's not like some of the races like Nike Women's Marathon where you could take 15 or 18 minutes just to cross the start line while tick, 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 the time limit's running on you. So I think everybody in this room would have the capability of maintaining an 18 minute and 20 second per mile pace, but also bear in mind that includes the clock that keeps running while you're in the porta potty, and if you're with your bestie, Sally, and you have to wait for her while she's in the porta potty, the clock is still ticking then as well. I think you should set bigger goals for yourself. We've trained you, and we've trained you pretty hard over the course of the season. And over the course of the season, you should have developed a sense of your own pacing. So using your own pacing to calibrate a time goal, I think, is a great idea. Typically, I will go into a race with a series of goals. The fallback goal is always something, thankfully, I've been able to do 86 out of 86 times, which is cross. And I celebrate that every single time. But why not challenge yourself a little bit more? And set a time goal, think about what kind of pacing you've done thus far, and maybe even what's often referred to as a stretch goal or a wow goal. You know, if the moon and the stars and the skies align, then maybe I can run, break 6 hours in a full marathon and go out shooting for that, as long as it is actually achievable. And so you can't go into a race with a singular time goal. It's something that I have personally experienced back when I was trying to run Boston qualifiers, and I did get to run it a couple of times, as well as the 3 or 4 times I qualified. There were a number of times when I was trying to qualify where I didn't. And there's just this hard and fast time. And I remember the first time that happened to me where I was like 6 miles into a full marathon. And it's like, dude, I'd have to like start speeding up at this point to be able to make my time goal. And I was an absolute rudderless ship. And so from that point forward in the marathon, I had to constantly renegotiate with myself what a good salvage would be on the day, what would be acceptable, what would be damage control. And so I would advocate, just think of it as a series of goals. Think of this would be, wow, a really fast, extraordinary time for me. This would be a reasonable expectation based on what I've done on training, but I will never scoff at simply dragging my carcass across that finish line and having them hang a medal around my neck. Another goal and objective during the week before sick people on a plane flying to and from Carolina 2 weeks before your race. So you get sick then, you get it out of the way, you know, your antibodies are all fired up, and you know, now I'm going to be able to stay healthy. One of the best ways to stay healthy is next week, you know, pamper yourself, sleep. Christina was kind enough to yawn on cue there to show that she's been sleep deprived up until now, but now she has a goal of sleeping a lot next week. And it's particularly critical in the latter part of the week as you're getting closer to the race day. Become Howard Friedman Hughes. Avoid germs. You know, those sickly coworkers, steer a wide berth around their cube. You know, you don't want to get anywhere near these people. Be Howard Hughes. Wash your hands 20 times a day. You know, you really want to avoid getting sick. But it happens. So I have my own perseverance story. This was 10 years ago for the Napa Valley Marathon, which used to be the event we do this season year after year. And 1 month before the full marathon, I was supporting on the course of half marathon and actually managed to tear my hamstring while running somebody in. And that was my first experience with physical therapy. Not a whole lot of fun having them beat on a damaged hamstring. So the Monterey training for us was like the last biggie, and I asked my TNT coach, how, you know, I want to get back into the run thing. How far should I go today? 10 miles. I come limping in later, and I'm talking to my team and training coach, and he asked me, so Tim, what mile did this happen at? So, since I've now re-pulled my hamstring. About 11. See? I told you! 10. And the guy was so proud of himself, this team and training coach alumnus, that he was a genius in telling me not to go over 10 miles. So I've got this pulled hamstring. I go up to Napa actually 2 days before the race. And I wake up the morning before the race, not the morning of. And I'm in my hotel room, and I can't open one of my eyes. I've had a sinus infection for a couple of days, and I have such bad conjunctivitis that apparently the sinus infection has now become pink eye, and I have one eye that's cemented shut. And I'm actually in the bathroom with a wet washcloth. By the way, I then went for a run on that Saturday morning. And then that Saturday, what did I do before the team and training inspiration party? I went to the local emergency room of the local hospital. And at that time, I employed the don't ask, don't tell. I told the doctor that I was there to do the marathon the next day. I never asked him, should I not do the marathon tomorrow? He never told me, don't do the marathon tomorrow. He prescribed the antibiotics. I took them. I then drove to the inspiration party, and by then I had decided, somebody who you've gotten to know a little bit, Doug Booth, our honoree, was having a real tough time then, just like he's having a real tough time now. And I kept thinking, if Doug was able to persevere through what he'd gone through in his first 2 years at that point of cancer remission, then recurrence, I can go out and run a stupid marathon. And it really, really sucked. It was, that was a really hard marathon, but I have no regrets that I ran that race. So the point being, I had kind of the deck stacked against me for race day, but you can persevere. But if you can stay healthy, stay healthy. Don't go through all that. Another thing, rest injuries. Hi, Mr. Day. Hi, there's, rest injuries. A lot of people are injured by this point in the season. Very, very, very common. You will not lose the conditioning that you've already developed to this point in the span of a week and a half from now until race day, okay? Once you develop endurance conditioning, it can stay with you for upwards of a month with it being diminished very little. So one of the best examples of that I can think of, so before there was the dope smoking Michael Phelps dude, the guy who was the American swimmer was a guy by the name of Mark Spitz. My colleague here will remember Mark Spitz.
I've heard of him.
Thank you, Kurt. Thank
Heard
you.
of him. He had a mustache, like a old mustache.
No worries.
So Spitz, for the 1968 Mexico City Olympics, boldly predicted that he was going to win 6 gold medals. At the Mexico City Olympics, he got 2 gold medals, both in the relay. So he was very quiet and humble headed into the 72 Munich Olympics. At the 72 Munich Olympics, in his 7 events, which included a couple of relays, 7 gold medals out of 7, 7 world records out of 7. So at that point, Spitz was an international celebrity. Cover of Sports Illustrated, all the talk shows, flying all over the United States. The only time that he dipped a toe in the water for 2.5 weeks after the Olympics was to pose in a Speedo with the 7 gold medals dangling around his neck. The first time he swam, 2.5 weeks after the Olympics, he came within a half second of one of his world records in a training swim. Why? You don't lose conditioning. But if you don't rest injuries, there's so many mind-numbingly, phenomenally stupid things you people can do in the next 11 days, trying to hone, improve yourselves, that at best, if executed perfectly and nothing goes awry, will only minimally enhance your race day performance. There are a million things that can go wrong. So just rest. This isn't time, hey, I made it through school by cramming for the final. You're not going to cram for the final for a marathon. You're not going to, I'm 17 miles behind what I should have completed by now. I'm going to go run those in the next 3 days so I catch up with everybody else. It simply doesn't work that way. You're at that level of conditioning that you've achieved, and you just want to maintain it. And you don't want to jack it up by going and doing anything stupid. So even if you don't run or walk another foot between now and April 27, it's not like you're not going to still be sharp. And it's not like you're not going to be conditioned, because it's already happened by now. Another one of my credos, I'll shut the jacket, is knowledge is power. You folks all need to spend time at your race website. You need to know the content on your race website backwards and forwards. A lot of races will provide a virtual tour of the course on their website. San Luis Obispo has that. There's a video. When you get to your destination, there's an option to actually go out and drive the course. Some courses you can't do that, but others, San Luis Obispo is pretty wide open. You could, and you can have interesting mixed results from that. Wow, hey, I was able to knock that out in a half hour. That's no biggie. Wow, that was a lot of work for my car, and I'm going to do that on foot. But at least you get a sense of, because I did that same Napa 2004. I drove it with my family. Oh no, not another rolling hill. But then I knew what to expect on race day. Every race website has course maps. Study the course map. Knowledge is power. You want to be able to visualize what it is that you're going to be dealing with. You want to get in a position where there's no surprise about whether I'm going left or right here, or it's 3 miles before I make this right, or this is where the hills start, or wow, this is the really big hill that I remember reading about on the website or looking at the course profile that went with the map. Or, where the heck is that aid station? Boy, it seems like forever since the last aid station. No, they're plotted on the course map. You have no excuse not to memorize what it is that you're going to be doing in advance. You need to know when your start time is, so you can start calibrating in case you're starting, bless you, starting a full marathon, like, I don't know, bless you, 6 a.m. And start thinking about what that's going to feel like. That doesn't mean the day before the race you want to get up at 4:30 because I want to experience what 6 a.m. feels like, but just get yourself acclimatized. On the race website, you'll learn what food and beverages are served on the course and where you're going to find them, and exactly where you're going to find them, because they're going to be plotted on your course map. So, for those of you going to San Luis Obispo, the sport drink is something called fluid. It's not just a name, it's a description. That's your fluid. So, you need to start planning, okay, am I going to be using that? Have I ever tasted that before? Is this going to set well in my stomach if I'm actually going to rely on this stuff? Research the weather. Knowledge is power. Research it until the day you depart to get to your destination, so that you get a sense of what's going to be the appropriate clothes for you to be wearing during the race. Figure out the details of the expo. What kind of stuff you're going to be able to find there, what kind of stuff you're not going to be able to find there, how you're going to get there, how you're going to get back from there, when it's open, when it's not open, are you going to be able to get there before your team and training inspiration party. You need to figure out, your start time. How are you getting from your hotel, the team hotel, to the start on race morning? How long is that going to take? How's that going to factor into what you're going to do in terms of consuming food and beverages? Another bit of knowledge that you can acquire and bring with you is a pace chart. If you do have time goals, there are various websites that you can pull up where you can calibrate in what kind of pacing you need to do. And in fact, some websites will let you print off a wristband with the pace times on it. Last half marathon I did, my buddy did that actually at the expo, where he printed off his little wristband and he had it on him and it told him what he needed to shoot for with splits. And he even told me, so this was provided by the race itself, that it even included for a half marathon fade. So it assumed that his pace would slow as he would get into the later miles. So again, if you have a time goal, this is a tool that you'd want to acquire in advance. Another thing to plan and prepare for is your team and training shirt or singlet. We've drilled into you, nothing new on race day, nothing new on race day, nothing new on race day. Hey, here you go, wear this. Okay, and you have to wear that because you're representing, right? You're representing team. Also, if you're not wearing that TNT singlet or shirt, we the coaches can't see you. You're invisible, particularly in the bigger races. What the coaches do is we're out on the course going, looking for purple, looking for purple. Yes, sir, can I help you? Or I'm back on. So Mr. Chris Walker, during our commercial break, what he actually didn't tell me is he missed about an 11-minute gap there. So for the studio audience at home, I hope you didn't miss too much. I actually said the most important stuff about 45 seconds ago. Critical to your race. Sorry about that. It didn't work out for you. So San Luis Obispo specifically, courtesy of the multi-talented web captain, Chris Walker, you guys are going to be wearing these cutout foam stars. So that's another level of coach spotting out on the course. So what we do, we're not looking for facial recognition. We don't even know that you have faces, by the way. We're just looking purple, 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 and then some additional identifying information. And so for San Luis Obispo, purple with yellow gold star. And that's why you want to put that on too. It's a team pride thing, but it also is going to help anybody who's out supporting on the course. If you want to be supported, if you want, there was this woman that I was coaching at half marathon up in San Francisco, a teenager, if you can believe that, they let teenagers do these things. She made a point of telling me how she missed most of the track workouts because that was the night of her ab class. So on race day, she decided that it was time to display her abs. And so she stripped off her team and training shirt very early on and was running in her sport bra, proudly displaying her abs, rendering her invisible to the entire coaching staff. Well, I don't know, maybe a couple of the guys were looking for the women in the sports bras, but not Coach Tim, that dedicated coach to the team such as he is. Thank you for that. So when we give you this brand new garment, you're going to get it Monday or Tuesday, so you're getting it well in advance. Wash it, wash it, wash it. What you're doing is you're softening it. You know, now you've got a new piece of fabric against your body that you've not run in before. And customize the heck out of it. Personalize it to you, to your cause, to who you are, which includes one of the things that'll be talked about, putting your name in big block letters on the front so that people call out your name. I'll mention that again a little later in the talk. That'll be about 10:15 or 10:18. It's not current projections. I'm kidding. Kidding, Mitch, you look at your watch. Cracking my own self up there. Yeah. So, but I've decorated with ribbons with honoree names. I puffy paint, you know, which is the colored Elmer's glue all basically, and done pictures and designs and things like that. So, I mean, it's something unique to you for this special day for you, and that gives you days to do that, particularly if you're puffy painting, because you need to allow time to dry. You're not going to puffy paint the front and back all at the same time.
You use duct tape too.
Duct tape is another way.
No, it's pretty.
Not as pretty.
No, you can get the pink duct tape or something, you know, they're.
Hey, here you go. Did you want to make 1015 a reality? I didn't think so.
Sorry.
So another thing to do the week of is to plan and lay out your race day wardrobe, your supplies, your food. You know, I'm one of these people, I pack for a trip often, you know, within 2 hours before the plane takes off. You don't want to do that with your race. You want to start laying the stuff out as it occurs to you, including, you know, the variables in terms of the clothes that you're going to wear based on what the conditions will be. So nothing new other than the team and training shirt. Lay out your body glide or your sports shield, or bring both. Bear in mind, for first-time full marathoners, you're going into uncharted water in terms of a whole new level of friction that maybe you've never experienced in your life, where things have been rubbing together for longer than they ever have before. And you really want to use some friction protection for that. Men, nip guards. You're welcome. Another thing that I always use is garbage bags. The garbage bag is the exoskeleton for before the gun goes off. The garbage bag is something that you wear on the outside and then discard. And I'll talk about that again at about 10:21 in the presentation. Kidding yet again. I often will bring an old sweatshirt, you know, paint stained, or it's got holes, or I bought it at Walmart, 3 for $10, as another thing that I'm going to jettison during the race itself. And again, I'll come back to that. Gloves, hat, you want to keep the extremities warm. You know, and maybe San Luis Obispo for you guys on the 27th will be warm, and you're not going to need this stuff, but you're going to want to plan to bring it in case you need it. So you're planning for the weather variables. Maybe a long sleeve shirt underneath the team and training singlet, which I actually did one particularly cold TNT marathon. But you need to think about, is that something you're going to want to shed? Because one of your honorary speakers at next week's send-offs, and I won't say which one, actually I assisted in undressing her and redressing her as she was running on the Great Highway in San Francisco during the race, because she got so hot and she had a long sleeve shirt on underneath her team and training shirt. So the only way she could do something about that, literally on the run, while Coach Tim the gentleman looked away while holding her drippy, sweaty thing that she's shedding to me, is for her, literally, she had to strip down to her sports bra, take off the garment that was inside, hand that to me, and then put the TNT shirt back on. So you need to think of that in terms of planning. Do I really want to be stuck wearing this the whole race, or suffer potentially the indignity of what I just described? So you're going to lay out your fuel belt, your little canteens, what your sport drink is that you're going to be carrying, goos or your other food gel, whatever food items you're going to carry. We've not really talked about S caps, which are Succeed caps, which is something that I use, which is predominantly a sodium supplement. Nothing new on race day, nothing new on race day. But if you're not carrying something like that, you're going to lose a lot of sodium and minerals over the course of the walk or run, particularly doing 26.2 miles. So you need to figure out how you're going to replenish those things, and what other food and fuel you're going to bring. Don't pack your headphones, your iPod, your MP3 player. These things are actually, these days, banned at certain events. The United States of America Track and Field Association actually bans it at all their events. When you read the San Luis Obispo website, it is worded strongly recommend against. And there are some team and training centric reasons not to do it in terms of that tells coaches not to support you because you're off doing your own thing. It tells other competitors in the race, hey, I'm all into myself. I'm not interested in dialoguing with you. And it's also a safety issue. You know, if it's a, you know, pretty strung out course with a fairly small field, you could be a woman alone out in the middle of nowhere, or a dude out in the middle of nowhere and not knowing that there's a car that slipped out on the road on what's supposed to be a closed course. So leave the music at home. During that week, alter your food a little bit. Megan gave the nutrition clinic earlier in the season. I'm still someone who believes in maybe increasing the carbohydrate intake for a couple of days before the race. That doesn't mean quit everything else and just start shoving carbs down my pie hole, but maybe tipping the balance a little bit and increasing the amount of carbohydrates, because you know you're going to be burning that as fuel during the race. And when you get to that team and training inspiration party, as I will mention at 10:31 p.m., I'm kidding again, there's a significant pasta emphasis, so the likelihood is you're going to be getting some carbs then. Also, drinking the week of. I don't have a beer to chug down right now. And, you know, I mean, the reality is there's nothing wrong with having, you know, the occasional soda, the occasional alcoholic beverage, but you're going to want to focus on clear fluids, juices, not sport drink, because you're not burning a lot of calories. You're going to want, so you want to minimize the alcohol, the carbonation, the caffeine. We've talked before about how frequently, like when we did the roundtable clinic, how frequently you should be hydrating, and the fact that you should be hydrating frequently enough to need to urinate about every 2 hours or so. And the manila envelope test, where we talked about what the color of your pee should be. And I happen to love this chart. This is a blow-up of a chart that was actually posted at Sports Basement. Whee! What your wee is supposed to look like. And it explains here that you're ready to run, or if that's the color of your urine. Frankly, I think this one over here, they may be sampling from the wrong location. That's just, wow. If your urine ever looks like that, you need to get to a medical doctor stat. Okay? But the point being, you want it to be more clear. The more hydrated you are, the lighter the coloration of your urine. So you should be looking at that. But don't freak out your coworkers by carrying this chart or a manila envelope into the loo at your workplace. Yeah, let's see what that looks like. Another thing to do the week of is, it's a great time. Were you raising your hand, young man?
Yeah, my battery's gonna die soon.
Do you have another battery?
I've got another thing. Also, what time is break?
So I started late. Do you need to pee? Are you telling me you need to pee?
No. I've only had a couple waters and
right, so let me
water.
Give them the chart.
So I'm gonna get to, yeah, and then you can take this in with you and let us know how you're doing, Mr.
I've got my visual. I've been to Sports Basement.
So I'm gonna finish these two parts of the week of, and then we'll come back to the day of, or travel day, the day before. Prepare to be inspired. Research as much as you can about your honorees before you go. Chris, have you posted, we did get a number of the honoree bios up on the Facebook page, right?
Sure.
Okay, well, they'll be there.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. You know, because that's stuff that you're going to carry with you during the race. You know, think back on what you've learned about these people, because there are going to be times during the race when it's really going to suck. It's going to be really hard, and you need something to fall back on. And so to what I've actually done is like printed stuff and brought it with me to the race destination and read the stuff the night before. The most critical night of sleep in my mind, 2 nights before the race. Not the night before, because the likelihood is you're going to get up at a ridiculous time, and you may have a ridiculously early start, and you're going to be nervous the night before, so you might not sleep like a darn the night before. But 2 nights before, plan it. So typically Friday night for a Sunday race. Plan it so that you absolutely spoil yourself, and that means maybe even taking a nap on the day before the race. And with that, so we will go into our restroom break, and then this young man will get all queued up for the studio audience at home, unless that's already dead and I'm pointing at a dead camera.
No, it's
That's
still-
fantastic. All right, so we'll come back in about 5.